This is exquisite sculpture, exquisite art. Prominent jugular in the neck of Michelangelo's David reveals the Renaissance master knew about anatomy and the circulatory system before the doctors of his age. This is on Mail Online by Ian Randall. Beautiful statue of Michelangelo's David. From head to toe is just magnificent. You could never take your eyes off it, it's so beautiful. It's depicting him before battle with the Philistine giant Goliath. And as we know, he was young. He was without beard. He was still a teenager. The appropriate state of excitement and fear. His jugular vein is bulging, and its association is not noted by science for another 124 years. The bulging neck can also be seen on Michelangelo's statue of an angered Moses. I guess it's the blood pumping, the adrenaline, the force, the the excitement. I don't know what you would call it. Now, the prominent jugular vein in Michelangelo's David statue reveals that the sculptor knew details of the circulatory system 100 years before doctors knew. So most sculptures and living people, jugular vein is not normally visible, but in the Renaissance master work, it's displayed in the Galleria dell'Accademia di Firenze in Italy. In Florence, the vein is swollen and visible above David's collarbone, as we can see. The feature would be anatomically realistic, given that the sculpture depicts the biblical hero in a state of excitement. He's about to go into battle and save the people of Israel against, it's a one-to-one battle. So we notice that Michelangelo associates a swollen jugular with physical excitement 124 years before this was documented by medical science of the time. The connection appears to have only just been spotted now. This is what they've now noticed, 515 years after Michelangelo finished the sculpture of his famous work. The prominent swollen jugular vein in the neck, revealing that the sculptor knew certain details of the circulatory system 100 years before the doctors knew of this. The swollen jugular would be anatomically realistic, given that the sculpture depicts a biblical hero in excitement about to go into battle. And the other lithograph we have is from the German painter Osmar Schindler of 1888. The young Goliath with his slingshot, young David with his slingshot, and he got the giant right in between the eyes, and that's a very soft area of the skull. We know that when you hit yourself there, that area goes right into the brain and you're done with. Now, the feature of this sculpture noticed by cardiologist Daniel Gelfman of the Marian University College of Osteopathic Medicine of Indianapolis in the U.S. And he says distension or the swelling of the jugular vein can occur as the result of certain illness, including heart failure and elevated intercardiac pressures. But in a young man, in his physical prime like David, a swollen jugular would only occur temporarily when in a state of excitement, such as a biblical hero might have experienced prior to fighting the giant Goliath. We also see the veins being prominent in the astronauts in the ISS. You see that all their veins are sticking out for some reason. I guess it's a difference in pressure. Now, Michelangelo, like some of his contemporaries, had training having to do with the human anatomy. Dr. Gelfman wrote in his report, he says, I realized that Michelangelo must have noticed temporary jugular venous distension in healthy individuals who are excited. You do that when you're also screaming at somebody. You get red in the face and your jugular starts popping out. That's dangerous. Now, while the Renaissance master made this connection, that is Michelangelo, by at least the year 1504, medical science would take over a century to discover the same thing. Then at that time, David was created in 1504. Anatomist and physician William Harvey had yet to describe the mechanics of the circulatory system, according to Dr. Gelfman. This did not occur until the year 1628. There is a totally nude picture of his, I should say that the whole body statue in the article if you want, and I'll give a link below for you for that. You can see that the proportion of the head is much bigger than the body. I guess he did that. Michelangelo did that so when you're standing below the statue, the head won't seem small, because if you did it in actual proportion of the body, that means that the head would have seemed a lot smaller than should have been. It's because of the angle of observation. So David is not the only one of Michelangelo's works to be featured with a swollen jugular vein. The same detail can be spotted on the artist's sculpture of Moses. I have a little statue of that in my house. I had bought that when I was like 18 years old. I saw it in a store window in New York, and I had to pick it up, and I still have it, and I'm looking at it now over my break front. Yes, I loved him. I love the prophet Moses. Now, the same detail is what Michelangelo put on that as well. And he has, well, I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it on here. Okay, the same detail spotted on Moses. The work is depicting having just returned from Mount Sinai after receiving the Ten Commandments to find the Israelites worshipping the false golden calf idol. So obviously he was angered at them, and because of he was excited and really peeved at them, his jugular was also prominent. The prophet Moses had to restrain his anger. It's also visible in the sculptor's glaring expression and tensed left arm, and a portrayal, as Sigmund Freud described it, of frozen wrath and pain mingled with contempt. And Dr. Feldman notes that his paper, most observers all would agree that the sitting Moses is thought to be in an excited state. In contrast, the jugular vein of recently deceased Jesus depicted in Pietà, which resides in St. Peter Basilica in the Vatican. I've seen that, and I also have a copy of that statue as well, sitting right next to Moses over my break front, is appropriately not visible. Okay, so because he's already deceased. So the jugular vein in Moses is more clearly visible in 3D construction, in which the biblical prophet Moses depicted having just returned from Mount Sinai after receiving the Ten Commandments to find the Israelites honoring another idol. So, in the sculpture, one can only show a single image, Dr. Gelfman said, image in time, adding that the cases of the angered Moses and the apprehensive David of Michelangelo must have wanted to express this circulatory observation in his work. In other words, in his work, he's actually portraying their emotions through the jugular vein popping out. And he says, I'm amazed at his ability to recognize this finding and express it in his artwork at a time when there was such limited information in cardiovascular physiology. Interesting, even today, the phenomenon is not discussed in cardiology textbooks, right? So it's incredible that a 500-year-old statue can depict physical findings that might be used in diagnosis. This is according to cardiac electrophysiologist Marcin Kowalski of Staten Island University Hospital in New York. So after modern medicine's reliance on high-tech scans and blood work, he said, it always amazes me where students of anatomy or medicine were able to diagnose diseases by mere observation. And he says, I hope that the art of physical examination does not disappear from the repertoire of our young physicians and medical schools continue to teach physical findings ahead of high-tech tests. Now, findings added at Long Island Valley Stream Hospital, cardiologist David Friedman highlighted the subtleties of the clinical physical exam and how it relates to patient health, of course. And he says medicine is still, in some instances, too, an art as well. So this is fascinating. I never even knew this, and fantastic. You see, he's trying to portray the emotions through their jugular vein and the pressure of the stance of their hands, the force of their hands. Amazing. He must have been some man, if anybody knew him. Wow, my goodness. So this is on the Daily Mail. I'll leave links below for you for this. Thank you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.